Good afternoon, Jesse. I'm David Botsford, and I have the honor and privilege and pleasure of interviewing you today because you are one of the 3 recipients for the Charles Butts Pro Bono Award for 2019. Congratulations.
Thank you, David. Thank you for doing this. It's really kind of you.
It is my pleasure and honor. What I'd like to do is start where were you born and raised?
Miami, Florida.
Okay. How did you get to Texas?
Followed a boy, my boyfriend. We both worked for the Florida governor, and when the governor decided to run for a different position because we were serving at the pleasure of the governor, we both knew that we wouldn't survive a transition. So he got a job out here, and I followed him and went to school.
Okay, and you've had a career other than a lawyer, have you not?
Yes, sir.
Just tell us a little bit about that other career and how you got into law.
Sure. It was not by choice or plan, really. It just kind of stumbled into the life path, so to speak. So my first job, I went to Florida State. I graduated in December of 2007. And while I was in college, I worked in the legislature, and then I had lobbied a little bit with a private firm. And once I graduated, I got a job in the Florida governor's office. And I was there for about 2 years. I lived in New York for about a year and worked at a cable news network, and then decided I would be better suited back at my old job, which was back in communications rather than in cable news. And so I moved back to Florida, finished up with the governor, and as I said, he was running for a different position. So finished up there and then moved to Texas.
Okay. You went to Baylor Law School, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you start there in 2011, roughly?
2012, actually. I joke that I took the Zoolander's, school for a kid who can't read good path to law school. I never really liked school. I didn't even really want to go to college. I ended up going to college because that's what you do when you make it out of high school with pretty decent grades, and Florida had what's called the Florida Bright Futures Plan, which is in-state tuition if you had a 3.0 or above GPA, so took advantage of that, went to state school, and otherwise this was not a part of the plan.
Okay. Now when you were at Baylor, you took Skip Reeves' Innocence Project class, I guess. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And that's part of why you're here.
Yes, it is.
Talk to us about that. Tell us what you want to tell us about that particular case.
Yeah, so Joe's case was the first case Skip gave me, and it was something he had on his desk for a while and was just trying to figure out what to do next with it, but really needed somebody to kind of hunker down, dig back in, because it is just like a bear of a case. It's huge. Joe was tried twice, so the transcript alone is almost 4,000 pages between both trials.
And let me interrupt. He just for a second, he was accused and convicted of murdering his wife and professed his innocence from day one. Fair
Yes,
statement?
sir.
Okay.
Fair
Excuse
statement.
me for interrupting.
No, yes, sir, exactly. And so Skip had a selection at that time, I think, of 3 cases. He was giving students the option of deciding which they wanted to work on, and I just happened to think, I think the other was a shaken baby case, and then he was getting ready on the Graff retrial. So I had helped with that a little bit, but he thought to kind of introduce me on how to get ready for a retrial with a case that had been tried before and all kind of the retrial nuances, that Joe's case, because there were 2 trials, would be a way for me to dig into one case and kind of get my feet wet, so to speak, and then also help him prep for the Ed Graff retrial.
So you worked with Skip on Joe's case the entire time you were at Baylor, right?
Second year, yes, sir.
Second
November
year?
of 2013.
Okay. And then you graduated in 2015.
15, yes, sir.
And you went into private practice, correct?
I did. I was Skip's associate for my first year and a half out of school, and so he got me started to just make sure I had good supervision and would figure out a little bit, right? None of us know what we're doing, but try and get a good start on the basics, and so I worked for him for my first year and a half, and then we still share office space, but we just separated in terms of just logistics, so now I have my own practice, but we're still sharing space together, and I'm lucky to be with him every day.
If I understand correctly, and do correct me if I'm wrong, you and Skip have filed, a writ and an amended writ on Joe's case?
Yes, so I think we did a 3rd amended writ between hearings because we had just, what was the last change we had to make? the Chapter 64 litigation kind of split us up procedurally. During the course of the DNA litigation, when we were coming back to do the findings phase because of the delay between the original testing and then subsequent efforts, we had found some evidence that wasn't located at the time of the original testing, and so we had moved to get the evidence that we later discovered tested, and so our last amendment to the writ was just kind of making sure that the application reflected that the testing we wanted done the second time, unfortunately, was going to have to be abandoned because the state blocked that when they appealed our order granting additional testing, and we didn't want that to hold up the 1107, so we had to split them up.
But that Chapter 64 DNA appeal by the state, that's still pending in the 11th Court of Appeals, is it not?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And Joe's case in part, I guess in large part, was based on bloodstain pattern evidence. Fair statement?
Fair statement.
And you and Skip have been very, very active in connection with the Texas Forensics Commission in that regard. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir, we have.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about what you and Skip did and what that resulted in?
So Skip, because of his work with the FSC on arson science, really thought that because the FSC hadn't taken up BPA as an issue, and because the NAS 2009 report specifically said we know that there are these problems with BPA, and again because of how the FSC handled arson, Skip thought that BPA would be appropriate to try that path again and to see if an independent evaluation of the BPA testimony in Joe's case, to have that independently evaluated to give us some kind of up or down as to whether the problems we felt we knew we had would be confirmed by an independent organization. And so our work with the FSC, as I understand it, neither of us are involved in the working group that I understand is working on the accreditation standards, but that's a really wonderful project that we understand has come out of the review of Joe's case.
Right. In fact, I guess it was maybe January of 2018 when the commission said, okay, effective May 1 of 2019, you're going to have to be accredited before you can testify about blood pattern stain evidence, correct? Correct,
yes, sir. And
huge accomplishment.
Well, and it's really, I think, a reflection of the wonderful people that the FSC put together in their working group. Those are the people that need to be able to speak to others in their field and say this is what Texas is requiring so that what happened to Joe doesn't happen to anybody else.
So your work, not only as a law student, which is obviously unpaid, but since you've been an attorney, which since May of 2015 roughly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For Joe's case, so you've put 4, 5, 6 years of pro bono work into this case, right?
Yes, sir.
It's still ongoing, right?
Yes, sir.
Have any feel for how many thousands of hours you put into this case?
No, somebody asked me the other day, and I haven't counted, don't intend to count. It's a lot, 6 years worth of work. Joe and I joke, actually. The funny story is I had failed my evidence class 30 days before graduation. It is not Joe's fault, of course, but one of the reasons was I was just working on his case more than I was studying because it was really all that mattered to me. And so when I think about just how many hours in law school, I don't even know. I was working more on his case than I was going to class. So I can't estimate, maybe 1,000, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, has it been worth it to you?
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Joe he's not only, I'm lucky enough to be able to call him my first client, but he's just a huge part of my life. He has been, because I think his background in education and because he was such a wonderful teacher, we've had that really kind of nice student-teacher relationship when I was going through school, and just his encouragement, and when I get down about how things are going, he often picks me up and tells me, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be fine, and so he means just so much to me.
Do you have any feel for what the CCA is going to do?
I don't. I wish I did. I don't.
Okay. Would you feel good about your pro bono work, right?
Yes, sir. And I do hope, what I feel like I can say, well, I don't think any of us ever have a prediction about what a court's going to do. I feel like we gave them the sufficient record to substantiate everything we asked for. So I feel like our record supports and gives the court support to grant relief on everything we've asked for. So I feel like that's all I can say.
Realizing that young lawyers and law students are probably going to watch this video because it's going to be on, you'll receive a copy of it, but it's going to be on the TCDLA website. What would you like to tell anybody that's going to watch this in the years that follow?
That doing pro bono work and finding a case and a client that you feel really strongly and passionately about is by far, I think, one of the biggest rewards of this job. I understand logistically that taking on a pro bono case is not something every practitioner can do, especially solo practitioners, which, as I understand it, so many of our colleagues are. But I think that there's a way that we can all incorporate pro bono work into our everyday practice. Again, because I'm a solo practitioner and I have Joe's case still. I personally just need to keep my pro bono caseload pretty low, but the way I try and personally compensate for that is doing pro bono work for my clients, like within the case that I'm handling. And an example of that is if I've got clients who have a bunch of traffic tickets, surcharges, try and clean up the rest of their lives that isn't necessarily related directly to the case, that we've been retained or appointed to handle. But I think it's a way to incorporate pro bono work into your everyday practice.
Super. Well, I salute and applaud you for what you've done on that case, and I look forward to interacting with you in the future as your career blossoms and flows.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you for doing
so
this
nice
for
to
us.
meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.